Raph Graybill. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today and giving me a chance to tell you a little bit about myself and about my campaign. I'm the Democratic nominee running for Attorney General. I'm a fifth-generation Montanan. I grew up in Great Falls, the son of a Lutheran minister. I was fortunate enough to be educated in our great public schools in Montana, to get an education, and I chose to come back, working in Billings, and now I live in Helena with my wife and our 15-month-old daughter, Genevieve. I work as Governor Bullock's chief legal counsel, and I'm proud to get to go to work every single day to fight for you. I'm running for Attorney General because we need an independent voice in this office. Extremism and partisanship have failed us. I will put party politics aside to work with anybody to fight for Montana, particularly our legacy of family farm and ranch agriculture. I am so happy for the chance to get to answer your questions today, and I want to tell you about just two issues that I've been talking about everywhere I go. The first is healthcare. Healthcare is on the ballot, including in this race. My opponent says he's running to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. That would be a disaster for our state. We'd lose 10,000 jobs. We'd lose rural hospitals. We'd lose the lifeblood in our communities. I'll fight to stop the lawsuit that would kill the Affordable Care Act and to keep our communities, our workforce, and our public health strong. The second thing I'll do is I'll investigate big pharmaceutical corporations that are illegally conspiring to raise the price of prescription drugs. This is something attorneys general can do something about. We've seen across the country as Montanans lose money because of anti-competitive practices. Well, attorney generals can fix that problem, particularly when it comes to our prescription drugs. I'm running to be an independent voice, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Hello Farm Bureau members, my name is Austin Knudsen. I am the Republican nominee for Montana Attorney General. By way of background, I am a farm and ranch kid, fifth generation Montanan from up in the northeast corner of the state in Roosevelt County. Grew up on the family Angus Ranch and Spring Wheat Farm at Bainville. Graduated from Culbertson High School in Roosevelt County and still live on the family place today. But important to this job, I've been a practicing attorney in northeastern Montana for my entire legal career. I'm going on about 13 years now. Most of that time has been spent in the private sector. I was 5 years with a small firm in Plentywood, 5 years in my hometown of Culbertson with my own small firm. And I helped you folks. I helped farmers and ranchers and small businesses with just about any kind of small town legal problem they had, whether it was estate planning or probate, farm and ranch leases, oil and gas leases, surface use agreements, contracts. I mean, you name it, with very few exceptions, I've probably done it. Right now, I'm the Roosevelt County attorney, so I'm the full-time criminal prosecutor in Roosevelt County. And the reason I did that, the reason I stepped up and ran for that is frankly, we were having a very bad methamphetamine and illegal drug problem in Roosevelt County that was not being addressed. And so I stepped up, ran for county attorney, and been doing that for about the last 2 years. So I'm very excited to bring that knowledge and skill to the Attorney General's office. I think it'd be good to have somebody in the AG's office who's actually baled hay with a John Deere 4440 and combined on a Gleaner L before. So with that, happy to visit with anybody at any time. Thanks.
The biggest issue facing agriculture in Montana is that only a handful of companies control the entire livestock and commodities markets. And Montanans, particularly our producers, shouldn't have to subject themselves to anti-competitive practices. It's bad for consumers and it's bad for our producers, which makes it bad for our economy. I commend Republican Attorney General Tim Fox for his work to bring attention to this important issue. I'll continue in his vein of work, and I'll make sure that we work alongside Montana's producers to bring antitrust investigations and, where necessary, antitrust enforcement to make sure that our producers get a fair deal. That's what I've done in private practice as an attorney. It's the work I do now defending Montana and our values in the governor's office, and it's what I'll do as your next Attorney General.
Biggest issue facing agriculture today for sure is the commodity prices right now. I grew up in agriculture. We've seen good times, we've seen bad times, and it's cyclical, we know this. But right now, just across the board, we're seeing very depressed commodity prices that are as bad as we've seen since the Great Depression. This is a huge problem. What can we do about it from the Attorney General standpoint? Well, one thing I really want to look into as the Attorney General is, frankly, the meat packers. I think from the cattle industry perspective, there's some real suspect things going on in the packing industry. Now, I don't claim to be an expert in that, but what I would like to do is to see a really thorough investigation be done. And if necessary, I certainly would be willing, as Montana's next Attorney General, to get involved in federal litigation. Because I think it's important our ranchers have an equal stake and a level playing field to play in. And if there's market manipulation taking place, we need to step in as Montana's legal representative and do something about that.
The most important role for our state lands is to provide a reliable return for the beneficiaries of the trust. That means our public schools. But it's also important to remember that as we manage our lands in Montana, that we're preserving and protecting the way of life. And we have to look out for our producers. And when we manage those lands, we have to make sure that we're thinking about rural Montana too, and that rural Montana has a seat at the table. Partisan extremism has failed us at the land board, and I've been disappointed in the past few years as more and more we see party politics creeping into what used to be broad bipartisan consensus on how to manage Montana's lands effectively. That's why I'm running to be an independent voice on the land board. My experience is in getting folks together and solving problems, not in partisan extremism, and that's what we need in an Attorney General, that's what we need on the land board.
The most important role for state lands in Montana is funding K-12 education. State lands in Montana truly do fund public education in the state of Montana. And they serve an important role also in the local agriculture base. That's really what I see my role as being a member of the land board is kind of dual. You know, you want to maximize the revenue that we're generating for state lands and for K-12 education. But at the same time, we have to be mindful that, you know, one size doesn't fit all. And, you know, what might work for an oil and gas lease in one part of the state maybe doesn't apply to a grazing lease or a farming lease in another part of the state. So I think having the ag background that I have is going to serve me really well on the state land board, just because I've got such a diverse experience and I understand the differences in the land use world.
As I said, I'm running to be an independent voice, both in the land board and as Attorney General. And in fact, the reason I got into this race was fighting on behalf of a ranching family out in Webo that had been treated unfairly by a group of partisan politicians on the land board. And this goes to management. This group, this family, the Stenson family, all they wanted to do was make sure that their family ranch could be passed on to their kids. So they approached the state and they approached the Habitat Montana program. And they worked out a good transaction that would benefit hunters and anglers and benefit this family as landowners. Well, a group of extreme partisan politicians didn't like that. They tried to pull the rug out from under this family. We went to court and we won so that they could exercise their private property rights and promote and protect a program that works together the Montana way to treat people with decency. That's the kind of leadership I'll bring to Montana's land management issues. Working together with stakeholders, not partisan extremism.
My priorities for managing state lands is kind of like I just said. I mean, we need to be mindful and we need to, on one hand, make sure that we're doing the most to maximize revenue. And I've certainly got the legal background to do that. I mean, I've looked at literally thousands of oil and gas leases. I know what should be in them. I know what doesn't belong in them. But we also need to recognize that there's a lot of agriculture involved on state lands as well. And that just because we might be asking for a premium lease price on an oil and gas lease or on a coal lease, that doesn't necessarily translate well into the agricultural field, especially today when we've got depressed commodity prices and you know, things are tough as they are. So I really want to be an advocate for Montanans on the land board. I want to advocate for our students in maximizing the revenue, but I also want to advocate for farmers and ranchers in the state of Montana who also utilize those state lands.
In part of my work for Governor Bullock, I help him respond to drought, wildfire, extreme temperature events, and other wild weather events in Montana. Often our tools that we use and employ to benefit producers is by suspending hours of service regulations. I remember very distinctively last winter we had the extreme weather events working to make sure we got beats on trucks, and that involves suspending hours of service. Well, you go back to 2013, the Obama administration tried to make those rules more stringent. It wouldn't have helped driver safety, and I would have opposed it if I were Attorney General. Those rules need to make sure they benefit our producers. And you can count on me as Attorney General standing up to anyone, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, to make sure that our producers come first and that Montana comes first. That's why I'm running for Attorney General.
You know, the federal rule that I think has had the biggest effect on the state of Montana, and in particular Montana agriculture, is the Endangered Species Act. Now, that's not so much a federal rule as it is a broad brush of legislation. But I think that has become abused to the point it's become the most powerful piece of legislation ever created in the United States. That Endangered Species Act covers such a broad area and it has the potential to be used, and frankly it has been used. It's been weaponized against agriculture, in particular in the state of Montana. So that's one that, as the Attorney General, I really think we need to push back when we've got environmental groups stepping in, using the Endangered Species Act as a weapon against farm and ranch growth in Montana. And there's other examples too. You know, it's the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. These things have been weaponized by a lot of the environmental groups. And I think we need a strong, aggressive, conservative Attorney General who wasn't afraid to push back on that stuff. And that's one area that I'm really looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and getting involved in as the Attorney General.
I'm so happy for the opportunity to get to know you today. Like you, I value independence. And I think that partisan extremism will fail us. It'll fail us in terms of our getting progress in our commodities markets to break up those big out-of-state players that squeeze money out of our producers, that hurt our consumers and hurt our economy. And I think that partisan extremism will fail us as we face land management challenges. I'm part of the state. My roots run deep here, and I care about the future of our state. And I'm running because I know that we need an independent voice on our land board and in the Attorney General's office. I appreciate your vote.
Thanks again for having me, Farm Bureau members. It's always great to be here and visit the office in Bozeman and talk to the staff, but I really appreciate your time. Look, I'm a farm and ranch kid. I grew up doing what you folks do. I've chased cows on horseback. I've put up hay. I've combined grain. That's what I come from. That's my background, and that's how I'm raising my kids. If you're interested in having a true advocate for agriculture on the state land board and in the Attorney General's office, I'm your candidate, and I really appreciate your time and I appreciate your support. Thanks.